do a little bit of introduction around. Um, I'm Andrew Weaver, and I've hosted these before, and I enjoy doing it. And been in lots of people's homes and gotten the joy of listening to them tell me their stories. And so it's really cool now that I get to do it in this format where we can actually record the story and share it with other people to help inspire them. Bobby, do you want to say who you are, my co-host?
Yeah, my name's Bobby Ware. I work in the tech support department here at Gamble. So I talk to a lot of people who might need some tweaking or something adjusted on their machine. And so I've gotten to know a lot of the quilters over the few years that I've been here as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to Lisa K. Lisa, your name and what town you are in
Hi, I'm Lisa K. Wilson. I'm in Troy, Illinois, which is a suburb of St. Louis, Missouri.
on the other side of the river, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm still learning Missouri and Illinois geography, so
Yeah, you're the northerner. Yeah.
I am originally from Washington State, but I love it here. The people are great. Calvin and Brooklyn, where are you guys?
We're from Emmett, Idaho.
Emmett, Idaho. Oh,
Yep.
well, that's why you asked me about who I knew.
Yep.
Yes, I have been rafting down the river in your town, and it tried to kill me because I tipped over my tipped over my boat, but I survived to tell the story. So, well, we've given a little bit of time for people to come in, so I just have to kind of flip a coin to a certain degree about who I'm going to start with, and I will do about a half hour with Calvin and Brooklyn, and then we'll do another half hour then with Lisa, and there'll be some questions that come up throughout that the people who are here at the webinar. I'm not sure if the button that you see on the attendee side is chat or Q&A. I'm not sure because on my side I see both. But when you ask a question, I should be able to see it, and I may not be able to ask all the questions, but I will pick ones that look good, and we'll ask, and hopefully we'll pull out a lot of really good information. So let's just get started right away with Calvin and Brooklyn. How long have you been long arm quilting?
Um, as a business or personally?
How about both?
Yeah, both.
So we've been running our long arm quilting business for about 3.5 years. And I have been quilting on a gamel, well, on my friend's gamel since I was 12, so 13 years.
You started early. I've seen others start
Yes.
early.
Yes, I'm glad I did.
Yeah. What made you decide to long arm as a business?
Well, we had the opportunity, and I knew that there were a lot of people who have a lot of quilts, and it was a good opportunity for us to be able to work together, work side by side as a couple, and to do something that I love.
And our goal long term was to have like a full-fledged quilt store. And I think quilting is a great way to sort of catapult into that industry.
So we have a train going by. Sorry, I muted it to try to stop the train.
I was going to ask that the long arm that you have that you work with right now, did you get this specifically for the business, or was it you had this prior to and then decided to do the business with it?
No, we got it for our business.
Mm-hmm. So and you obviously run the business together.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Um, you mentioned a quilt shop and some of that other stuff. So is the long arm machine part of a bigger operation?
Yeah. So we right now we're all online as far as our quilt store goes. Um, so yeah, one of the services we offer is the long arm quilting services that we do there. But then also it makes our products look really good when they're custom quilted and, look great. When the quilting looks good, it helps us be able to sell our quilt patterns and kits and stuff like that. So it all ties together and really well.
Gotcha. So when it was time to buy the machine and obviously this is the most expensive part of starting your business is to buy a machine. Why did you decide to buy the Gamel?
Oh, it had to be Gamble. I mean, so I mentioned that I started quilting when I was 12. I have a friend who's only about 80 years older than me, and she's had a Gamble, and for some reason she trusted me with it. And so I learned how to do free motion quilting on hers. I had seen the Statler, I'd seen how it works computerized, and I knew that I wanted the quality of a Gamble. I wanted the consistency, like reliability. She's had her machine for I don't know how long, and it's never needed to be replaced. So we wanted to make an investment that was going to last us a long time.
Mhm.
So do you primarily do hand guided, or you mostly do the Statler?
Mostly the Statler. We mostly run it the edge to edge computerized patterns.
Mhm. So since you've only had that machine a couple years, it's the same one that you originally bought. Have you done any upgrades to it since you got it?
We have not.
Mhm. We might have to talk about that later. You might have got before the Statler Ascend upgrade. So, all right. How did you know that there was going to be enough long arm business available in your town to support another long arm quilter?
We guessed.
No, we
No,
knew. Well, we knew that there were other quilters in our town, and we're in a little town in Idaho, but I knew that they had a backlog. I knew that they had people waiting on quilts, and we wanted to also reach the mail-in quilting market. So we knew that if there was too many quilters in our town, then at least there would be other towns that needed more. So we kind of focused on the mail-in quilting.
When you originally purchased the machine, how did you come up with the funds to do it? Was it financed, or how did that go?
Yeah, we looked at a couple options there, but we decided to use our savings to, we saved to start a business and use that.
That's a very rare thing for people to do.
Yeah.
To
It was
save.
a little
I mean,
scary.
that's
To have some
anti-American.
savings,
Yeah, that's anti-American. Congratulations. That's a good way to do it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have another job too when you started your business? Was this like a transitioning thing where you kind of started off with your day job and your night job?
Sort of. We got, 3.5 years ago, we were in COVID. And so we sort of got lucky in that aspect of, I was still working in ag finance, corporate finance. And we took the chance and we started our company, and pretty quickly it took off. In fact, our COVID year was still one of our best years, and I quit my job shortly after that because it was looking pretty sketchy during COVID there, and decided to run full scale with this. So
had COVID already started when you began, or did it start after you started?
So the timeline, it goes, he was working in ag finance, and then when we got married, it was right before COVID, and we decided that we wanted to start a business together, and it was in the sewing industry. We weren't making masks, but we had supplies to make masks, and we sold the supplies. And that's how we were able to come up with the savings to purchase our Gamel, which is more of our long-term thing. We knew that masks wouldn't last forever. So that's when we bought our machine a few months later.
we purchased Gamels about 6 months after starting our business.
Mm-hmm.
So you were newlyweds when you started this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every newlywed's dream to get a long arm quilting machine, right?
How many hours per week do you spend working in your business? All of them?
Yeah,
lot.
a lot of hours.
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time, but we recently hired an employee to help us specifically with the quilting and to run the machine for us.
Mhm. So you're not quite as much a slave to the business.
Yeah, and it's been fun. I mean, even with like, she's never ran a long arm before, but she's wanted to. And so having the Statler and having those patterns, it's been awesome to be able to just show her how it works. And then she can make these like beautiful quilts, and she doesn't have very much experience.
Mhm.
It's awesome to see how well that transitions for other people.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you can just train someone else. So you say you primarily do edge to edge,
Mhm.
and so what do you charge by the hour, or do you charge by the square inch? How does that part work?
We charge by the square inch.
Mhm. And what's the rate in your area?
The rate in our area, I think, is about 2.5 cents an inch.
Mhm.
When we do local, that's what we charge. Mail and quilting, we charge 3 cents an inch.
Mhm.
And that's to
Rural-
cover, because we cover the shipping costs
Mm.
on that as well. So that's sort of where the difference comes in.
Mhm.
What would you say the ratio is mail in and local?
We have a few steady local customers. My local customers are the people who I actually do most of the custom quilting for. So they'll bring me an edge to edge quilt, and then they want a custom one done. I would say probably 90% mail in, and then our 10% local would be the custom and the different things that they want.
Mhm. So, would you share what your revenue was on your worst year? Although you said COVID, your first year should have been your worst year, but maybe not.
Hard to say.
I don't know, the breakdown of just the quilting. I think we did about 15 grand in quilting services
Mhm.
In our first year.
in our first year.
Mhm.
And
And
yeah.
now it would be harder to kind of, we could go look in it, but it'd be harder to kind of differentiate because we run other quilting things through our same business.
Yeah, so it's
Mhm.
just a little bit hard to come up with exactly, because somebody might buy a quilt kit and then they'll also buy quilting services to go
Mhm.
with that when they're done. So
Mhm.
that's yeah. So it's
It's
probably
pretty common for small businesses to not have really good reporting on their numbers, and people ask about, well, here at Gamble, people will be wondering why we don't know what the serial number is of their machine that was bought 25 years ago, and we're like, man, it was handwritten somewhere.
Yeah, it's in his
you
notebook
know
somewhere, right?
it's before computers, so that's pretty common.
So you say quilting is like um, a piece of your business. Would like how big of a piece is that, and what other things do you do? Like sell batting, fabrics, things like that?
So a lot of what we do is we've kind of expanded into writing quilt patterns and creating kits. So we're kind of known for our pre-cut quilt kits. And then when we write the patterns, we sell them wholesale and retail. And we do the long arm quilting. We sell a couple like manufacturer pre-cuts, and we sell a little bit of fabric, but it's mostly in the patterns. That is like, that's what kind of makes us unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our quilting is probably only 10% of our business
Now,
now. But it has like everything to do with the rest of our business, if that makes sense. So,
Mhm.
Couldn't have gotten here without the quilting.
yeah, if you want to learn how to become a really good quilter and learn a lot about quilting, start quilting for other people, and you learn a lot about piecing and what's trending in fabrics and patterns and everything else, because you're seeing them come across, and your machine daily. And so it's a cool, I don't know, it's a small portion of our business, but it gives us a lot of inspiration and also help in the other areas of our business as well.
Mhm.
Small part, yet integral part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely necessary.
So, what was the hardest part of growing your business?
I think for me, it's just like sticking with it. Like, I don't know, some days you just don't want to, but we we've stuck with it this far, and it's been really fun to see the growth and like to have return customers. We actually went to the Road to California quilt show in January, and one of our customers who sent us a ton of quilts came specifically there to meet us and to like say hi and show us her next new quilt. It's so fun to get to see those people. So working through like those hard times makes that makes it worth it.
Yeah, one of the cool things about that lady that we met in California is she's probably one of the best quilters that we have. I mean, just the best tops and everything. And when we met her in person, we found out that she is practically blind. So she has a hard time seeing anything, yet her piecing work is amazing. And so that was another cool thing. And she didn't tell us that before we met her in person and stuff. So that was cool.
Yeah.
You meet some of the most inspirational people.
I was about to say that exact thing. And you
Yeah.
meet people from all walks of life in this business.
Yeah, it's so cool. And even like their quilts that they bring in are just so different. Like this is like, oh, we made this really quick for a baby shower, or this is my great grandma's wedding dress fabric. Like let's quilt it and make it into something. I just think that's so fun to see. Like every time we open a box with a new quilt, it's exciting.
Mhm.
One question that we usually ask people on this show is who is your biggest cheerleader or support system? With you guys, I don't know if it's a little different story since you've got each other. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you heard him explaining piecing and all of that kind of thing.
Impressive,
He didn't
yes.
know about quilting very much. Calvin's actually been awesome at, I told him that I wanted to do a quilt store, and he said yes, and we went for it, and he spends just as much time on it as I do. So he's been awesome for me.
Yeah.
Your dream of quilting, how's it going?
So
What about you, Calvin? Is it what? Let's hear your real feelings on this.
I don't know. I guess she's the inspiration here. And it's fun to see her dreams take off. And I think we work well together. She has big dreams and a lot of skills, and
He has a lot of organizational skills to clean up after me when I'm going too fast on stuff. And
so I think it goes well together. So
That's great. Y'all complement each other. You can tell.
Mm-hmm.
thanks.
So I like this question. What kind of impact has the quilting money and the control of your personal schedule made in your life? Of course, your life kind of completely changed 3 years ago when you got hitched, but what kind of impact has the money made?
well, driving your own income is really liberating. And we make a joke like you can work any 80 hours of the week you want, right? But you being self-employed and having the opportunity to make your own decision. We travel quite a bit, and a lot of the traveling we do is to go to quilt shows, but we love it. And well, at least I love it. I think he loves the traveling part, but it's awesome to be able to like have your own flexibility. And we have a 2-year-old and one on the way. And it's really good to know that like we don't have to worry about only one of us working. It's just is a balance of who's holding the baby at the time and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we had to, I don't remember what we were doing a few weeks ago, but we left our son with his grandparents, and he had a little meltdown when we had to leave. And it was one of those moments I turned to her and said, hey, isn't it great that we don't have to drop him off at daycare every day? And that's just I don't know, I think a huge blessing of running our own business is that opportunity. Now it's not easy. I mean,
We have to put a baby gate around the quilting machine, but
yeah. So I mean, it's still a challenge, but the challenges come with some great blessings too.
That's awesome to hear. I've got a question. What is something that you wish that someone would have told you when you first started out on this journey?
Don't I don't know how to say this, but like, don't take your time for granted. Don't give it away. It took us probably 2 years and we're still learning that. But like, as soon as people hear you have a quilting machine, they're going to ask you to piece. Like it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. And we tried to accommodate that, and decide what you are or you aren't. Like if you're going to piece, go ahead and piece and make quilts for people. If you want to make a long arm quilting business, don't piece quilts. Like let somebody else do that who can do it and hasn't maybe invested as much money in equipment and everything else to do those for you, and just quilt, or decide if that's what you want to do. But yeah, we tried.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't bad, but we could see a lot more growth when we focused on our strengths.
Mm-hmm. We had somebody ask a question over the Q&A, which was, how did you grow the mail-in business?
That's you.
It's actually sort of interesting because we did build a website, and it comes with a lot of challenges, and it's pretty expensive, but honestly, a lot of it still came back to word of mouth. So like we'd get one customer maybe from a Google ad, and then pretty soon her like 4 friends are sending in their quilts. Or this last week we had a lady from
Texas
and her friend from Switzerland that had made a quilt, and she said, hey, bring your quilt with you, we're going to go to Idaho. They were going to Yellowstone anyways, and bring your quilt with you. And they dropped it off on their way through and wanted us to quilt it for her friend from Switzerland. So it all comes back to word of mouth, I feel like, even in mail-in.
Mm-hmm. I'm imagining so many of the quilters that I've met. So the box arrives with the freshly quilted quilt, and she pulls it out and she unfolds it and she oohs and ahs over it. She shows it to her friends who live in the same town where maybe there's 2 or 3 ladies working there and it's kind of stale or whatever, or maybe nobody has a computerized machine and they're just running pantographs. And so she shows her friends how great this quilt is, and and by the way, I didn't have to pay anything for shipping. And I can see how her 4 friends would, well, we'll send them a top too. So I can see that it's very reasonable.
Yeah.
On your mailing, I'm sorry, on your mailing, what would you say the ratio is between word of mouth and some advertising that you've done?
I don't know. It's hard to say that, but I can pull up in my computer program, I can pull up my map, geographical map, and I get hot spots. So like, and it's weird because it's not necessarily the place we've gone to quilt shows and stuff, like Pennsylvania. We've never been to Pennsylvania yet. We get a lot of customers from Pennsylvania. And it's that same way, or like you can zoom in and see like, oh, I've got like 6 customers in this town. So I don't know. It's sort of hard to say exactly, but that's sort of what we see a lot of is clusters, which As a lot of them are sharing with their friends.
Mm-hmm. Christine wrote a question and asked, do you use a website / store service like Shopify, or did you build your own site and own URL?
Kind of both. We use Squarespace as the host, but we've done a lot of work to make it our own website. So
Mhm,
it's not like on another marketplace or anything. It's ours.
mhm. Okay, thank you. So 3 years ago, you got your GAML and you started. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to kind of emulate your success? And do you believe that, yeah, I mean, we're out of COVID now, but do you think if somebody was to do something like that today, that they could do it?
Yeah, I think so. I think having the long arm it's just an industry that's growing and growing. Um, Being able to jump in and do the quilting takes a lot of stress off of people who are trying to just learn how to make quilt tops. And I think doing it with the Statler especially is your skills are already like so advanced, or what people perceive as your skills, because you're able to do these intricate designs without a ton of training and they look awesome.
And the other thing too is like quilting crosses generations too. Like we're probably some of the younger people you've talked to, I'd guess. But we have a lot of customers across every age group. But we also connect well with younger quilters. And it was funny because we were just talking on Sunday with some of my family, and none of my or I should say on my dad's side, none of my aunts quilt or sew, but my grandma did, and all of my cousins do that are
Mhm.
my age, that are not the guys. I think I'm the only one
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But so they're like, 20s, 30s, they're quilting. And I think that's often an overlooked portion of the market, because we read the quilting surveys and say that the average quilter is, 65 years old. And while that is a huge part of the market, and I'm sure they're the ones teaching all of the younger quilters, there's also a lot of younger up and coming quilters out there too that
Mhm,
need younger people in the market to I don't know, be an inspiration and stuff to that age group.
mhm.
And you guys can be an inspiration to that group also.
Well, we hope so. But
Yeah, just pick which 80 hours of the week you want to work.
Yeah.
Working never hurt anybody, though.
no, it's good. We like what we do.
Yeah. So thank you to the audience for the questions, and perhaps more will come in. We'll shift our focus now, and we'll start grilling Lisa. You've got a good idea where we're going with these questions, but please, Calvin and Brooklyn, stay on, because we may ask you for some color commentary. So Lisa, how long have you been long arm quilting?
I just got my long arm in June of 2021, and that was my first long arm. I've been quilting, sewing, making tops since I was 11. My parents bought me my first sewing machine for my 11th birthday, and I learned how to hand quilt at an even younger age than that with my mom's guild during the summers. So she always went on Wednesdays to a hand quilting group, and during the day. And in the summer, I went with her. So for 3 months out of the year on Wednesdays, I hand quilted.
I think a
And
lot of the guilds meet on Wednesdays.
so in my more recent years of quilting, I I got a little bit frustrated with trying to hand quilt things, and I tried a few different things like using big stitch hand quilting, try to go faster, and I ended up taking some of my quilts to a long armor, and I didn't really like having someone else do it. And sometimes if I wanted something more custom, that wouldn't have worked because the shop where I took it has over a year waiting list for custom. And I have some quilts, some tops, and preparation. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I started thinking about getting a long arm. And with that, at the same time, I was thinking about doing it as a business. And it sort of came to fruition at the same time, like wanting it for myself and wanting to do the business and wanting to retire from my day job. And I got the machine in 2021, like I said, but that was just sort of a start. And in April of this year, I retired. So now I'm just quilting.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And why did you decide to go with a Gamel?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I went to some shows. Oh, show's not the right word. Try it out days at quilt shops, and different shops have different brands that they sell and things. And I went to some different places and looked at different machines, and I just wasn't pleased. Like, so I learned to hand quilt on the ones that take up the whole room, and then you can roll it in on all sides and it gets smaller, smaller. And then in more recent years, my mom got me a frame where it has the two rollers, and it looks in a lot of ways like our long arm frames, at least conceptually, but it was wood, and it had these modular rails that you could put, you could do a baby quilt or add pieces. And I did a king size quilt on that thing, and it really pulls in the middle, especially because of those joints. And I ended up having to make my own custom brace to hold those bars apart. And so when I was looking at long arms, I had that in my mind, and I'd look at it and go, are those bars going to pull in? Is that sturdy enough? And some of the ones I looked at, I just thought, oh my gosh, it looks like a toy. And I went and looked at a Gamble and was like, oh yeah, that's the one. That's what I want. And you can see it in the background. I would talk to my friends at work when I was still working, and I was just going on and on about it. And I would say, this thing, the wheels on the end look like what you use to close the bulkheads on a submarine. It's not going to fall apart, right?
Pretty sturdy and solid.
Yes. So I took one look at a Gamble and I was like, oh, there's what I want. And I went to see Lindsay Kleinschmidt, who's nearby in Waterloo, Illinois, and she has one that she'll show to people. And I was looking for hand guided at that time, and I really got inspired by Judy Madsen, who does all hand guided and ruler work, and she's amazing.
It's
right?
really cool to watch those people work, huh?
Yeah. And Lindsay had a Statler, and she dropped the belts and she let me play with it, hand guided and everything. And then she said, let me show you what the Statler does, right? And I didn't really say anything at the time, but I went home and I'm like, okay, now, like, how is this different? And what am I going to want to do and everything? And so then when I ordered a Statler, she expressed surprise. And I remember what I said to her was, what wouldn't I pay to be good fast?
Right, because your first quilt was beautiful.
Yeah. So my husband teases me that I don't do anything, right? I set it up and then I'm standing there. He comes in, what are you doing? Watching it again? Yeah, I watch a lot. So the setup is real complicated. So other times he'll come in and I'll be busy on the computer and everything, and he'll say, oh my gosh, you do more CAD than I do. And he's a civil engineer. He does CAD drawings for a living, right? So it's a nice mix of technical and artsy, and I just love it. I'm so happy. And I was good fast. It wasn't me, right? It was the Statler. And I did all the studying, all the videos. I watched all the Gamble videos while I was waiting for my delivery. I watched the skill builder videos. I made the first jump starter skill builders before my machine arrived. I had 6 of them queued up, waiting to sew. And I made the first skill builder table runner the day I got my machine. I put it on and I finished that the first night.
I'll often tell people who are contemplating placing their order, and they probably, they're thinking, well, I'm talking to a salesman and he'll tell me anything. I'm sure they're assuming that. But I'll tell them, I'll say, look, you've got weeks to study your videos before the machine arrives. And not just myself, but the other delivery guys will often report that as soon as they've got it set up and they've checked the stitching, that she just goes to town and starts with her first quilt. So, I mean,
Yeah, if I can get your feedback, Lisa Kay, if you're talking to some of the people out there who are thinking about business, how important and how much benefit do you think it is to do some of that pre-education before you start?
Oh, I would do as much as you can. The skill builders are awesome. I watched every video on the Gamble site. I went through the whole, I just watched them one after another. So do all the education you can. At my delivery, I was doing an edge to edge. He walked me through some of the things, and I hit the go ahead button for a pattern where it had a jump stitch, and I got discombobulated, and he wanted to help me, and I was like, oh no, wait, I got it right. And I went in and I did a divide and I clicked one sewn and the other unsewn, and he was just astounded that I could do that the day it arrived. And
but you did your homework.
I watched the video, right?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because and I wanted the people to hear you say that, because it is true. I believe the education preparation that you can do prior to starting out can be so beneficial.
So, how did you know that there was enough long arm business in your town to support another quilter?
I don't know if there is. So I feel like the market is a little saturated. And, in one of your previous videos, there was a mention of the quilting cartel. I think there's a little bit of on the good side, a loyalty, right, for people to their long armors, and they don't want to go to someone else and be disloyal. And so how do you get somebody? So one of the things is, because I do a lot of custom, I can get people that way. I was in a quilt shop, and one of the ladies from my guild who does quilting was in there, and one of her customers came. So it was just one of those kismet things. I was there, and her customer wanted custom, and she was like, I don't do that, but she does. Go to her. So I got another customer just by being, the lady from the guild. She
willing to
knew
do
me.
that.
Right. And if she hadn't wanted custom, like, she would have gone to her regular quilter. I think that maybe after COVID, people had quilted all year long and done all their UFOs and things, and they were kind of like, oh, let me go out of the house again now. And maybe it's a little slow. I don't know.
Well, I can assure you that they've not done all their UFOs. I believe that if people were to be honest, to even to have 1 out of every 4 quilt tops actually quilted is a pretty high number. I would say that it's not uncommon for a woman to do, well, I guess they're mostly women, to do, say 5 quilts tops in a year and only quilt 1 of them, or maybe 2. There's the kind of like falling out of love that happens where you start to hate it before you're even done with it, but you finish it anyway. So there's a lot of tops out there.
So I went and looked at my Machine Quilters Business Manager software, prepping for this talk. And so one of your questions is, and I would answer for folks out there, get your Machine Quilters Business Manager. It was huge for me. I started it from the beginning, and I can look up all my customers, all my invoices, how many did I have, all that stuff. So I have 22 customers. That's not a huge number.
Mhm.
The year I got my machine, like I got it in June, like I said, and I had my first customer in December. So I sold one quilt. And then in 2022, I wrote this stuff down. I had 30 quilts for a
Mhm.
total revenue of 4,700 approximately. And this year, I've had 19 quilts so far for 4,600 in invoices. And so I'm doing a little bit more
So
custom.
your per quilt price average has gone up.
Right. So I
Yeah.
did the math. It was 156 in 2022, and it's been 242 so far this year.
Mhm.
So there's that. I'm not that busy. I have the one quilt that's a customer quilt, and I have no other in backlog.
Mhm.
So I'm doing everything I can to like get myself out there. I have a website, I have a card, I go to quilt stores, I have relationships with 3 local quilt stores. I make display quilts for one of the stores. I made 6 in the last couple of months for the one store that has a trunk show coming up. I'm hoping the trunk show, the people will say, "Oh, who quilted that?" And
Mhm.
that I get some business that way. I went to a show in June, and a lot of people said some really nice things. And I had 5 quilts in the show, and one of them, I just love that quilt so much. It's people said really nice things, and the featured quilter who was there came to me and talked to me about the quilt. We had a good conversation. She said, "You need to submit this to a national show," and I just applied to the AQS. I applied to all the shows for next year because I didn't know if I had a better chance of one or the other. So I put it in. I'm hoping, that'll get, like I need to get my name out there. That's
Mhm.
I haven't really figured that out yet.
Because
It
what everybody always tells us is that it's the word of mouth.
right.
It's the lady showing off the quilt to her friend, and she says, "Oh, who quilted it for you?"
And that's how I get my
Yeah, yeah,
I get customers saying, "Oh,
yeah.
Annette told me," or whatever. And
It,
that's all good. It's just, it's a slow roll.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Very similar to the story that Jeff told about the quilting cartel and how hard,
Right.
how, and in Oklahoma City where he's at, it may be a similar type of deal where it's a higher population area. It seems as though the lower population areas, I could be wrong. We'll see as we talk to other guests, but it seems like it's a lot easier in the lower population areas than in the cities. It can be harder there. Do you have supplies like batting, wide back fabrics, or things like that? I'm guessing the answer is no.
I have rolls of batting.
Mhm.
I think that was um, optimism, right, on my part. But
Well, you
it's
don't want to have
nice.
to press the creases out of it,
I like
bad enough
it.
to have one.
I use it for myself, and some ladies like it. Some of the quilt shops that do send me customers, they want me to have the customers get the batting there as part
Hmm.
of the, this is how we make some money for sending people to you. You have them get the batting from us, which is fine. Um, it's a little bit easier for me in a way to do the package batting because um, I don't have to fight with my roll and order it more often or anything. I'm fine with it either way.
Hmm.
I haven't done backs. I have a bunch of solids that I was willing to, have on my website that I can do backing, and nobody wants that.
Mhm. Who's been your biggest cheerleader or support system?
Well, my husband is super supportive, which is nice, especially since my income went from a
It's been
nice
a slow
engineering
start.
salary to, nothing. um, it's it's retirement for me. I don't need the money, and so I'm not stressed. It gives me more time to work on my own things. I have tried advertising. That didn't work too well. The quilt guilds and the quilt shops have been the best thing.
Mhm.
So as far as cheerleaders and support network,
It's him.
well, yeah, the Statler siblings in St. Louis are wonderful.
Mhm.
You talk to Dottie in episode 3.
Mhm.
Dottie is in the St. Louis Statler siblings, and that whole group is just, we meet quarterly, and someone will give a talk. I actually gave the talk at the last meeting about 2 of the quilts that I made and the design process, and things I learned and things I was afraid of and overcame and whatever. And that was really well received. One of the gals said, "Hey, you should teach." So I I like that. I like presenting. In my job before I retired, I did a lot of presentations. So I I wouldn't mind teaching at some point. I've only been in it 2 years, so maybe I'm not experienced enough to teach, but I enjoyed presenting to the Statler group, the SIBS group.
So so you're still relatively new starting out with this. And I think a lot of people, especially in the beginning phases, they meet a lot of the struggles that you're seeing. Um, as far as getting customers and getting business, where has most of that, has it come from the guilds or contacts within the guilds, or
It's been a combination of the quilt shops and word of mouth. And so some of the one quilt shop sent me a lot of people in the beginning. And then some of those people had word of mouth. Their friends saw something that I did and they came. That slowed down. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. And I I think that it's just, I'm not quite at that point where it's starting to snowball a lot. It's just a trickle. Once you
Mhm.
get that, I haven't really reached some exponential growth yet.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I think you're right with your snowball analogy because, so long as you don't lose customers due to, poor service or poor
Right.
quilting, right? Then it's just a matter of waiting for the other people in the quilting cartel to. I like to think of it this way. There's been restaurants that I would habitually go to over and over and over and over again. And then I'll have 1 or 2 or 3 visits that are, not bad enough to talk to a manager about, but just not very impressive. And I might stop going to that restaurant for a year or 2, not because I hate them. If it was really bad, I would have gone to talk to a manager, right? But it was just, I don't feel like Chinese, you know? And so I like to think that in a similar way that when people are using the services of a long arm quilter, um, there can be times when they get a quilt back and they're not unhappy enough to complain, but it was, the time that it took or the money or the way that the quilt was presented back to them or whatever. And, they're not being disloyal. They think they see the new quilter lady and they're like, I'm going to try Julie. You know, other people have tried Julie and they look nice. So they're not being disloyal to their regular gal. They're just not feeling it, you know? It's weird. Humans are weird.
And there's some nice shops nearby. I mean, the place that I used to go, that's out of a business, and she does a retreat center, and she's got a whole warehouse size thing where she has like 5 long arms in there. And it's definitely going to a business when you go there. Whereas I'm in my house. I mean, you can't see it really, but this is my master bedroom. If I bring people back to see my long arm, they see my bed too. It's kind of awkward. And I meet people at the quilt shops, and that seems to work better. And I'm willing to go, over to St. Louis to the shop and so forth. But if they don't send someone to me or call me or then that doesn't happen.
I got a couple of questions. I forgot to check the questions for a while, but Diana was asking, how are you defining custom? Is it basically just anything that goes beyond edge to edge?
Yeah, so I have a website, which I consider very important to have. I send people there if they're asking me about my edge to edge catalog, because you can download it. It's useful. And I define my 4 levels of custom, and I price them all by the square inch. I have 2 levels of edge to edge, regular and dense, and I have a regular edge to edge catalog and a dense catalog. And then on custom, the 4 levels are at a border. So it's like edge to edge in the middle, which sometimes is harder and sometimes easier depending on the design, right? Is it square? Does it fit well? Do you have to trim it? All that. The second one is blocks and squares. Basically, if you got a baby quilt and you want a duck in this square and a bear in this square, whatever, that's level 2. 3 is lined motifs and triangles, 45 degrees angles. The strip quilt you see behind me is going to have point to point triangles in those diagonal pieces, and that's level 3. And then level 4 is what I call full out custom, and that's fills and backgrounds, stitch in the ditch, weird shapes, diamonds, all kinds of, harder than 45
That stuff's
degree
actually really
triangles.
fun to do.
Right.
What
And
is
I have done.
What is your website?
My website is lisakwilson.site.
I checked it out before we started. I thought it looked very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's GoDaddy.
Yeah. Becky asked if your quilt store that you pick up from, if they display who quilted it. I think she might be asking about shop samples, actually, because it's pretty common to get referrals. You end up quilting their shop samples.
It's not in your face. So I have labels on the quilt. If you look at the back, it doesn't have a little sign on it saying quilted by Lisa Wilson. That's unfortunate. But if a customer says, hey, who quilted that? Or if they look at the label, it's on there. And then the trunk show, which is going to happen the first Saturday in October. I have 6 quilts in there. And the manager of the store said there will be people asking about the quilting. So I'm hoping that
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, I don't have the name of the person with this question, but is your referral business based on computerized quilting or the custom work you're doing? I'm guessing it's mostly custom.
So those 2 terms are not mutually exclusive. Custom and computerized. All my quilting is computerized. My edge to edge is computerized, and my custom is computerized. I've had referrals for edge to edge, and I've had referrals from custom. I did a custom level 4 for somebody, and that person ended up referring another customer who just wanted edge to edge. But after seeing the custom, they're like, ooh, here's a quilter I want to go to. So it's a mix.
Mhm. Let's see. We hopscotched around the questions. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to do what you've done? Do you believe in 2023 it's still possible for anyone to do this?
It is. I mean, I've talked about how hard it is to really break in and get a lot of customers. My website offers mail-in. It talks about that. I haven't had any mail-in customers. I do have an Etsy shop where I sell a few ready-made things, and I haven't had a lot of response from that. I did have one lady order 5 Dream Big banners that she gave as Christmas gifts last year. So I was like, woohoo! So I made 5 of those poinsettias in a couple of weeks through my Etsy shop. But I haven't had mail-in tops. It's all in person. And one of my customers, actually, she was talking to one of her friends, who's one of my Facebook friends. And she said, I need to find a local quilter because I've been mailing my stuff off and I don't like that. She didn't like putting her tops in the mail. And my friend on Facebook said, oh, I know somebody, and sent her to me. And so I was like, yay. So I don't know. It's interesting. Calvin and Brooklyn have such a mail-in business because I find people don't like that. That's my experience.
Yeah, there's different pockets, you know, and it's hard to figure out exactly. Every market is different, and everybody that we talk to, that we've interviewed, you know, their stories are quite different. So it is really interesting. We had a couple weeks ago, of the 2 that were interviewed, one did nothing but custom, and the other did no custom at all. So just very, very different. Um, how did you come up with the funds to purchase your machine? Was that a loan or?
Um, so I'm a little different. Like Calvin and Brooklyn, I just bought it.
Mhm.
I'm a career engineer. I'm 55 and I've been an engineer since I graduated from college, and my husband's an engineer, and we're very frugal. We live in our first house. We have 1 kid. We have a very modest lifestyle and a pretty good savings, and I just bought it.
Mhm. So you're not feeling any pressure to make a payment or anything like that, which makes it a lot easier.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can,
Very blessed. Thank
yeah.
you.
And well, and I noticed by looking at your website that your pricing was not the desperate pricing of somebody who's got to get a quilt through the door, right? You've got.
I value my time. I not to toot my own horn, but I do excellent work.
I
I
suspect it's practically perfect.
it's I mean, I just entered an application for an AQS show, and I'm hopeful that it will get. I mean, I'm trying to do top end work, and if people are looking for the cheapest place to go, that's not who I want. Anyway, maybe that's why I don't have customers.
Well, that's the beauty of being able to be your own boss and to run your own business. You can choose who you want your customers to be too. You can fire a customer if you don't like her. You can.
Yeah, I had a call yesterday from a furniture store who does custom furniture, and she was working with a designer, and the designer wanted that upholstery custom quilted, and I was interested, and I talked to her for a while, and I gave her a quote on my highest end custom, which is 8.5 cents a square inch, and the amount of quilting she wanted, yardage, would have been almost $3,000. And I said, show me the fabric, right? This may not even be enough. And it was ferns. ferns. I mean, the fronds were just, it was extremely complex. And I said, oh my gosh, you want every leaf quilted? I said, I don't want this job. I'm not gonna do that. 14 yards of 54-inch fabric and you want it quilted around every fern leaf? I said, I don't want to be a slave to that job.
And you have the freedom to say, nope.
No.
Yep. Well, let me just check. I think we got through the different questions that people were asking. I've got, well, okay. We finished up our time. I always have a couple extra questions rattling around in the back of my head, but I'll go ahead and wrap it up. It was a pleasure to have all of you on tonight's episode. I really do believe that by sharing the stories and listening to the stories, it can help other people to kind of think about how they want their life to go, how they want to build their business, and they can learn from your triumphs and from your challenges. So,
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much for coming. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you. It really has.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and click the button. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you too.